The USDA has their own dairy checkoff program, which uses money from dairy farmers to help partner with fast food and other food service companies to push dairy products on consumers, right? So the same agency that's telling you you got to lower your saturated fats to prevent heart disease and other health complications is also promoting those same products to you. The people's voice. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the people's voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the people's voice. Thank you again for checking us out this week. Greatly appreciate it. As always, want to thank everyone who has been checking out the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. I hope that, as always, that these topics are giving you information that either you didn't have before, so you're enlightened, or information that you already had, but you've gained either a new perspective, or at least it has motivated you and the people within your community to address these issues head on. That is the purpose of the podcast. I like to reiterate that each week. And again, I hope that we are serving that purpose. Today, I wanted to talk about milk, right? I'm just going to get right to it. Milk, and in particularly the dairy industry in the United States. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I was recently at the doctor, just getting, regular routine annual checkups. And we talked about prostate cancer. For those who may not know, I don't think I've talked about it on the show before, but, my father passed away from prostate cancer. So I've always been very aware about prostate cancer, and I'm now at the age where I have to, get annual checks and PSA tests and things of that nature. But I don't want to get too medical in the discussion. Some of this will refer to various medical aspects of some of the, the results of dairy intake. I want to make it very clear that I am not a medical professional. And so please, any information that you receive from a medical standpoint that I discuss, please do research and contact your local physician or healthcare professional. But getting back, so the conversation with milk came up because we were talking about prostate cancer, right? And often as an African American, when you go to the doctor, one of the conversations around prostate cancer is, prostate cancer is very hereditary in African Americans. So it's, I believe African Americans have the highest cases of prostate cancer in the United States. But I am of the full conviction, not even belief, a full conviction that, these conversations about how cancer comes about and we'd have to do more research. I'm fully convinced that it is a byproduct of consumption of foods and drinks and things of that nature. Because when you do the research, again, because of this type of platform that I've chosen to take in terms of podcasting, you come across so much information, and so much of the food and beverages that are consumed in the United States and really around the world are so manufactured. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but getting back, what led me to do the research about milk and the dairy industry in particularly is because after having the conversation with my doctor about prostate cancer, I started doing a little bit of research. And just FYI, I don't have prostate cancer, so I'm good. Everything is good. But Doing the research, I discovered that it has been widely documented that many health professionals have linked dairy intake to prostate cancer. And so, of course, I start, doing some research. And anyway, I got into the dairy industry here in the United States. And growing up as a child here in the United States, particularly, if you're over the age of 40, and even you don't even have to be there over the age of 40, anywhere in the United States, I take that back. You know that milk is constantly being pushed, or was constantly being pushed on us, right? Milk does the body good. We've all seen the commercials, and the campaigns, and how this is pushed down the neck. But started doing this research about the dairy industry and came across some very interesting information. Now, for myself, I am not a milk drinker, right? I found out 20 years ago that I was lactose intolerant, and therefore, my dairy consumption has been very limited. In the last 5 years, it's been literally non-existent, except for every now and then, maybe some butter on a bagel, which last 2 years, especially during the pandemic, it's literally I literally eat bagels with nothing, just toasted. But anyway, getting back, I found this information about the dairy industry, and particularly some of the issues associated with intake of dairy in the United States. It's worldwide, but again, I have to narrow down this research, because if I start talking from a worldwide perspective, this will be a 3-hour podcast, and I want to get as much information in a condensed amount of time. So a lot of these topics, I have to condense them and just focus them here on the United States. So doing the research, and I'm going through, and I'm like, wow, and I'm getting all these different facts and figures about dairy. And so I wanted to start off with the first one, because this one is probably most familiar to many of you who are listening. Excuse me. And those of you who are not listening, those of you who don't live in the United States, you've probably heard this as well. It was always pushed that milk does the body good because milk has calcium in it. And the calcium is responsible for strengthening your bones. And you want to grow up to be big and strong, right? You got to drink milk. These are literally the things that were told to at least me as a child, right? Come to find out, there was a study done, and I'm reading an article here from medium.com. And actually this article references an article from the New York Times that was done by Andrew Jacobs. And a lot of this information comes from that article, which is entitled, "Is Dairy Farming Cruel to Cows?" But in that article, they cited a study that was done by the Channing Laboratory at Harvard University. And this survey basically contacted over 96,000 people. And they found that the more milk that was consumed during the teenage years of these individuals, they found out that later in their adulthood, they were more likely to have bone fractures. So, that first myth, if you will, that milk does the body good and you got to drink it because it's going to make you healthy and strong. There was a study done, like I just referenced, that basically shown that the more milk that was drank by these individuals, they ended up having bone fractures later in life. Now, it doesn't say if it was, accidents or what caused it, but that debunks the first fact that, they used to always push milk is healthy for the body because it has calcium and you need to build strong bones. So that was the first thing, right? Then the next thing is, and it notes here in the article that dairy does have calcium, but it also has a great deal of other unhealthy attributes to it, that cause other issues within the body, right? And one of those things is that milk and cheese, and right, I'm just talking about dairy. It started from the milk conversation, but I'm just talking about the dairy industry or dairy products in particular, and it's products that are produced by cows, right? Milk and cheese are the largest contributor to saturated fat in the United States diet, right? And you think about this again, a lot of this information is readily available, but when you're in your day to day, you're not thinking that, hey, when I have that slice of pizza, or if you go to fast food restaurants and you have a hamburger with cheese, you're not thinking about these things. But it's these saturated fats from the dairy products that are produced, which have been associated for decades, since the research has been done. These products are associated with heart disease and other health issues. Now, the disturbing part about this, right, is that you have high saturated fats that are a result of dairy products, okay? And then you have governmental entities in place that are supposed to provide guidelines, right? So, like the FDA, the USDA in particular, provides guidelines on the level of calorie intake that you should have based per meal or on a daily basis and things of that nature. But the USDA, right? This is the crazy part. The USDA, which again is a government entity, also has an arm of their department that is responsible for promoting the dairy industry. So the same industry that tells you that saturated fats at a certain level, and I think it's what is it? It's 200. I'm gonna get it right here as we read it because I was like that doesn't, I don't understand. So basically, yeah, so 2,000 calories a day, right? That's the USD recommendation. But getting back, so you have the USDA that is also responsible for the promotion of promoting the dairy industry. But they know that the dairy industry produces products that are high in saturated fat. So you go, well, why would the same industry that's warning me against saturated fats now turn around and tell me that I have to, and I have to, I mean, why would that same industry then turn around and create all of these campaigns to get me to use dairy products? It's mind boggling. But here's the fact, right? So the USDA has their standards, right, about what can and how much saturated fat should be taken in every year. I mean, every day. But the USDA, and I'm reading here directly from an article from medium.com, the USDA has their own dairy checkoff program, which uses money from dairy farmers to help partner with fast food and other food service companies to push dairy products on consumers, right? So the same agency that's telling you you got to lower your saturated fats to prevent heart disease and other health complications is also promoting those same products to you, because this daily checkoff program, and it's called again the Dairy Checkoff Program. And now I'm reading directly from the USDA's site. It says the Dairy Checkoff Program is a national producer and importer program for dairy product promotion, research, and nutrition education. And this program is funded by farmers, farmers, U.S. farmers, and also international farmers who have to basically pay a tax, if you will, which goes into a fund that they then use to put out all these commercials. Does milk does the body good? Milk. You remember the all of the advertisements with the milk mustaches and things of that nature. So it's just bizarre. Also, the New York Times did a research, and again, going back to that New York Times article from Andrew Jacobs, and the New York Times quotes here that they found that the checkoff program spent almost $12 million one year just on advertising for a new Domino's pizza that said it had 40% more cheese. So again, the same entity that is responsible for providing you with guidelines on health and intake is now promoting that to you. That, I mean, just think about that for a second, and not to be dramatic, right? But it would almost be like if, they tell you that drugs are bad, but then they turn around and then say, but here's a commercial about a new company that's providing drugs. Go try it out. It's just insane. But let me get back, because I'm getting far into the USDA, and this is not just about the USDA. I want to get back to some of the health complications as a result of this. So in any event, dairy is very dangerous, and many times it has been promoted as something that is supposed to be a benefit, but it has many health complications. Saturated fats is just one of them. And keep in mind, this is also not just from a consumer standpoint. Milk and cheese and dairy products are a huge part of the U.S. education in terms of lunches, because they're promoting, if you go to a lunchroom anywhere in the United States in school, there's some type of dairy product that's going to be served. Mac and cheese, chocolate milk, cheese pizza, and so on and so forth. And this is promoted over and over again. And the interesting thing is that the USDA recommends that you keep your saturated fat levels, or at least calories from saturated fats, under 200 calories per day, or at 200 calories per day. I read here that 1 cup of chocolate milk can have, it says each 8 ounce of milk can have up to 190 calories and 5 grams of fat per serving. So now you think about, you have these children drinking chocolate milk at lunch. This is just promoting more consumption of a product that is deadly, not deadly, but not healthy for individuals. And you're starting individuals at such a young age getting basically hooked on these things. And there's been debates on whether chocolate milk is better than soda, because there's been a campaign to rid all of the sugary drinks from school lunchrooms and things of that nature. But so much going on around milk, that, and dairy products in particular. So I wanted to address this. But getting back, so you have those two aspects. First of all, studies suggest that it does not provide stronger bone health via the calcium. Secondly, you have high saturated fats that are consumed as a result of consuming dairy products. The third thing is that I wanted to get back to the issue, or the concern about dairy and how it is possibly linked to cancer, because again, that's what started my conversation, right? So there are several studies out here that are discussing about the link between, in particularly, milk and the increased odds of prostate cancer. And I'm reading a study here, or I should say, I'm reading a article here from the National Institutes of Health. This is directly from the National Institute of Health. and it's talking about the link between prostate cancer and men who consumed milk. And this is what it says, and I'm reading directly from the site, and I want to make sure that I emphasize that because, again, this is not a medical podcast, and anything that I say here, please verify with your health care professional, your doctor, but I am reading from the National Institute of Health. It says, the odds of prostate cancer risk were 1.5 times higher in men who consumed whole milk as compared to men who consumed 2% milk or skim milk in a study. It also says higher risk associated with reoccurrence of prostate cancer was observed in men who consumed whole milk. It also says another study suggested that male patients who consumed whole milk daily have a 74% increased chance of high aggressive prostate cancer compared to patients who drink lower fat content or skim milk. Now, again, I'm reading directly from the National Institute of Health, and I want to make that clear. This is not opinion based. Everything that I talk about is based on information that I gather and then give out to all of you as you listen to this. So there is a clear link between consumption of milk and prostate cancer. Let me play this clip from a doctor. This is Dr. T. Colin Campbell, and he talks a little bit about this. He's with the nutritionstudy.org, and he talks a little bit about this as well, regarding the link between prostate cancer and dairy products. So check this out.
Believes that those who consume dairy double or quadruple their risk of developing prostate cancer.
Cow's milk protein, casein, is a chemical carcinogen that is more relevant than any other carcinogen identified so far.
Cohort studies have been conducted, tracking millions of research subjects and their consumption of dairy over time in relation to their health. Increased calcium intake from cow's milk increased the risk for prostate cancer, while calcium from non-dairy sources were found to be protective against it.
And that is a clip from Live Kindly. They did a great piece on this very subject about the dairy industry and is dairy healthy for you. But as you heard there, the doctor referred to the link between prostate cancer and calcium. Prostate cancer and dairy. And again, a lot of studies suggest that this is a direct link. So this is a huge issue. And dairy consumption, there's so much information about this that it's amazing. And as I referred to earlier, one of the reasons why I don't drink milk is because I'm lactose intolerant. And based on the National Institute of Health, it estimates that, almost 30 to 50 million American adults are lactose intolerant. But now here's the interesting thing. It breaks it down into race. 95% of Asian Americans are lactose intolerant. 60 to 80% of African Americans are lactose intolerant, and 80 to 100% of Native Americans and 80% of Hispanics are lactose intolerant. It's information is mind blowing. It's mind blowing. But I wanted to get it out because I think there is not enough being reported about it. Because I think, again, I started this conversation by saying when you go to the doctor, particularly for African American men, they just assume, well, it's hereditary that prostate cancer is high amongst African Americans. But why? What was being consumed? Because originally, not to get too deep, but when cows were brought here in the 1600s, the settlers who brought the cows over were using it to get through the long winters because, again, I'm not a medical professional, but there is a ingredient in particularly cow's milk that is responsible for the whole purpose of cow's milk is for a calf to grow from 65 pounds to 4,000 pounds, I think, or 400 pounds, if I'm correct. So there's a component in there that is designed to rapidly build up the calf from a baby to this large cow. Now, you're consuming that as a human being. There has to be some type of consequences to that. And I'm not even going to get into the fortification of milk and things of that nature. There's a whole conversation about that, but I want to stay on topic. So, again, dairy can be very dangerous. And I would recommend that everyone who is listening to this, first of all, as always, do your research, but spread the word, because, prostate cancer is very deadly, especially among African-American men. Let me do my PSA and say, please get checked, men. Go to your doctor. I know it's uncomfortable, but the 10-second uncomfortable check is way easier than the chemotherapy and then the eventual ending of your life if you go through prostate cancer. So that's be my first recommendation. Please do your research about that. The second thing is there are obviously alternatives to dairy milk, right? So there's soy milk, there's almond milk, there's rice milk, coconut milk, cashew milk. So there are different alternatives, and then there are plant-based milks as well. Now, again, even with those, do your research, because there are a lot of ingredients that are added for taste. There are a lot of ingredients that are added to add calcium, add vitamins. So please do your research. But the whole purpose of this conversation today is to alert everyone that dairy and milk is not as healthy for you as many people would believe, or at least have been told. And plenty of studies show that there has been a steady decrease in dairy products, and particularly milk, over the last 10, 20 years as this information becomes more readily available. But continue to spread the word, because this is a one of those myths that needs to be debunked. And the only way that it can be debunked is going to have to be word to mouth, because obviously, our government entities such as the USDA are kind of playing both sides of the coin, and we need to get this information out to the people, because that is the purpose of being the people's voice. So, as always, I hope this information was enlightening and, causes individuals and you guys that are listening and watching to take action, get the information out, do your research, and the whole purpose of this life is to get old, right? Old is the goal. So that's what we want to do, and anything that we can do to jump in between that to stop the process of, or I should say extend the process of us living, I'm all for that. Do me a favor, if you enjoyed this, please share it, like the video, like the podcast. Any comments that you want to follow up with me, you can reach me on my socials. I can be reached at I am Trey Evans on Instagram. I am Trey Evans on Twitter. I am Trey Evans on Facebook, and also on Instagram at Trey Be Talking. That's TreyBetalking. So as always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the people's voice. tell somebody about the dream. Salute.
I am Trey Evans.
The people's voice.